So just out of respect for our guests here from the Solarize campaign, we're going to talk about that next. And to remind or inform anybody that hasn't been here for previous conversations, there's a Sustainable Hudson Valley and Catskill Mountain Keeper have undertaken a Solarize Hudson Valley campaign. They're working with NYSERDA to do so, and have been in negotiations with the town to figure out how we might all work together so that Rosendale is one of the pilots in this 3-year program.
Chris, did you bring copies of that?
Did you bring copies of that?
I have one. I've got a copy.
I think I left it in the printer.
One other detail, Chris, is funded through a state regional economic development grant.
Yeah, but I wanted to have one for everybody, so.
Susan has it. Looks like she has an extra.
I have one.
I'll take one.
I can share mine too.
I won't have one. If we could just take.
Oh, you need one, right?
We'll share. You have one.
Oh, I just gave it to Andy.
Yeah.
You have one, right, Chris? You have
Yes.
one?
Take one, please.
Okay, so like Mary.
I've got it on here.
Is the newest one? The one
From
that
like a couple days ago, the one that was sent out? Yes, I have that. I have it on.
Thank you, I appreciate that, because I think I printed them and left them in the machine.
I left my printed copy on my printer also, but I've got it on here.
So, I just want to point out that when Melissa came to talk to us, there was a version of a draft resolution that they sent us that has completely changed, I think based on some of the concerns that were expressed at the last town board meeting. And so that's why we have some of you may have gotten 2 versions of this.
So Susan Gillespie with the Environmental Commission had been working on this revised resolution, had been working with Solarize Hudson Valley campaign to do so, and got this to us by the end of last week. We've been working with our attorney.
Everybody,
who
I've
has
got
mail.
it.
As well as seeking guidance from the New York State Association of Towns and other communities that have embarked on similar campaigns. And basically these investigations have been ongoing up to and including this moment, which is why it wasn't on the agenda, and so I see this as really being an extension of the conversation, ultimately trying to figure out if we can pass this revised resolution this evening. With that, should I ask for a report from our attorney?
I would just like to talk about some of the things that I'm still concerned about. If you want to talk about what you think, if they can, or if Susan wants to talk about the position of the Environmental Commission. Start with that.
I also want to point out that John Wackman is here representing the campaign, so he's here to
I'm
answer
happy
questions.
yes.
And John, what part do you play in this?
I am project manager for Solarize Hudson Valley part-time position.
And is this are you working for one of the 2 organizations? Or
Catskill
NYSERDA?
Mountain.
Catskill Mountain.
They are the lead organization.
I see.
They are the fiscal agent for the Economic Development Grant, and it's administered by the State Energy Authority.
So I had a brief conversation with Susan before we came into the meeting, and I expressed some of my concerns because we had Melissa come here and had some questions answered. Maybe some of those things have changed, but what was presented to the board is now somewhat changed. I don't know that all our questions have been answered yet. I have taken a position that I don't feel comfortable supporting something that either endorses or supports one business over another, because I think that's overstepping the job and the responsibilities of the town. And some of the things in here, even with the newer version, I still think could put the town at risk for liability. And so, I think that needs a little bit more of a look at, and trying to understand what the role of the town really would be with this newer resolution as opposed to the older one. And I had a conversation with our insurance agent, and just, you know, the role of the town typically is where we search and look and procure work that needs to be done on town property or parks or things that we have control over, not for people that are doing work for third parties. So this is where it gets a little bit, to me, it gets a little bit foggy about what, you know, kind of a gray area, I think. So, I had said that I think we could play a role in education and information, just whether the Environmental Commission has an event to educate the public, but I want to be careful not to be an endorser or a party that is taking any responsibility over what's being done. Because, as I said to Melissa, if somebody hires a solar company to do work on their house and puts a hole in the roof, what liability does the town have for that? Because, we're part of this project. And so I want to be careful of that. The other thing I would say is when Melissa came, we asked her for more information, and I was very frustrated because when I went online to the links that she had emailed me, I really couldn't find anything specifically about this program. So my concern right now is that I don't really know what this program is because there's not any documentation that I could find, and it seems like the stuff that was first given to us was very vague about what steps are taking, how this whole thing works, and just as, whether, I'm not saying it's not a good program, I just don't feel like we know enough about it, and our job is to really vet before we pass something or say yes to something, and I don't know that we've gotten our answers. So those are the things that, to me, it's waving a little bit of a red flag. And I think we've also gotten some misinformation along the way, so I want to be clear now going forward of what really is taking place with this program.
And I assume a lot of that is due to the fact that this is the rollout, and you're still developing the program, which doesn't negate the concerns nor the issues, but just point out that it's part of the process.
Could I just chime in just on your last point about not having much information on the Solarize program? I actually first became familiar with Solarize because I went to a session of the Association of Towns, last year's Association of Towns meeting, and it was a very exciting program and been very successful in the places that had been done in Westchester, in Tompkins County, I think, is the other part of New York where it's been done. And the governor, NYSERDA, has put all of this money behind this program because they see it as having a lot of potential to really significantly expand residential solar in New York State. So I personally think it's a valuable program and something that would be great for Rosendale. And I do understand the barriers that stop people who otherwise do want to, are interested in getting solar for their homes, but are just they get just stymied by the research they have to do and other issues. So this really makes it easier for people to take that step. We discussed the legal concerns last week. I don't share the commercial concerns so much. I think Rosendale is a small town. You're using several.
Yep, we will select several.
Selecting
3 is the
several
number that
installers.
will probably
I had a
be,
real
could be
problem
4.
with programs that were selecting just one installer, but with several is usually
And
better.
2 different companies can join together, and be a partnership, so that would expand it even further.
Right.
If a company is small and you really couldn't handle the capacity, then they can partner with another company and share the resources. Yeah.
Right, yes, so that's, and I suppose you could encourage partnerships among.
And we do, yeah.
providers.
Look favorably is the language.
Yeah.
Look favorably.
Okay. Last, when Melissa came to speak, she talked about the town having a role or participating somehow in the RFP process and that kind of thing, which I thought actually, I was uncomfortable with the town having any role in that at all. And, you know, I appreciate the language in this resolution that says that, you know, Catskill Mountain Keeper or Sustainable Hudson Valley would undertake and assume full responsibility for the request for qualifications, RFPs. I think that additional language might have to be added that specifically says that the town has no role in the selection
And
process.
actually, that just being put in a resolution isn't enough. That's, you know, we're resolving the full responsibility and we won't have a role, but that's just a resolution. That's not even an agreement with them. You know, and I think it's probably, I imagine, a wonderful program. I'm all about alternative energy, so that's the non-lawyer part of it. The lawyer part of me, and that's my job here, is, you know, in this resolution saying, we invite them to come here and do a campaign for town residents. So they're doing that at our invitation, or our endorsement, or however you want to do it, or, you know, whatever way they come up with. That puts a liability on us if something should go wrong. You know, we always hope everything will be done very responsibly, not just by them, but by the contractors that are chosen. But if it kind of has our seal of approval or invitation on it, and there's a problem, we have liability for that. And so that's my concern. And today Jean talked to our insurance agent, and that was their concern as well. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they would like us to endorse this or invite them, but it's not necessary for you to go forward. Is that
That's
correct?
true.
So I'm, as your attorney, it makes me real uncomfortable to say, let's do this as a feel-good thing, you know, which it is, and probably a great program. You might be accepting liability, and they would like your endorsement, but they don't actually require it to move forward.
Can I ask just one follow-up question, Mary Lou? I understand that, and I was thinking this could potentially be a problem this afternoon. So I was thinking of alternative language, and I mean, what it seems they're really looking for is to have the town support the program and spirit in some way, you know, without.
True.
But, and I wondered if we could do, I guess you could say it's a more watered down version, but have the resolution just resolve that we support the goals of the program as they articulated.
I need to step in because something just happened in this conversation that is another concern for me, because when I talked to Susan, I was assured that it was no longer going to be limited to 3 people, 3 companies, and now I'm hearing going back to the 3 companies. And part of the reason that I was even interested in allowing the town to be part of an education of this issue was if we were not going to limit any person from being part of this group. Because if you're going to, absolutely no way should the town be picking one business over another. So as far as I'm concerned, I would not recommend any business over another business in this town, and that's what's being asked to do, and I have a problem with that. Okay.
The language in the resolution that you have speaks to ensuring the qualifications of the installers.
Right, but
And-
again,
and
You just said only 3, you'll probably pick 3, okay? And I specifically made an issue when Melissa came that is not okay. That you cannot say, I mean, I'm not gonna tell somebody which plumber to go to, I'm not gonna tell people what restaurant to eat in, or what gas station to get their gas from.
Right.
And this, to me, feels like the same thing. And I was more open to this when I got, when I thought that this was being open to anyone who qualified, and even today, you reassured me that
There
that
was
was the
a
case.
discussion, the latest that I had heard was that there was a discussion with NYSERDA, which such a arrangement was proposed.
And then
Yes,
that
that is-
also adds to the fact that I feel like nobody really knows what's gonna happen here, and it's very, it's very, not solid yet.
Councilwoman, let me say a couple of things. One is that, as Chris said, this is a pilot. We are responding to concerns that this council has expressed. There are a couple of things, though, that we know about this. So, an important benefit of Solarize is to give consumers a discount. If that discount is given by 6 or 8 companies, those 6 or 8 companies will not get the number of installations that they need to justify the discount they're giving. So I'm just saying, this is an economic argument that I feel is pertinent, that if we, I'm going to guess that you would not wish any company participating that is not certified, that is not OSHA compliant, that is not fully bonded and insured, that is not using the standard or above standard components. So all of that, I'm sure we all agree on. The Solarize model has worked in other towns, in other states, in other regions, because of these attributes. And one of those attributes is simply this economic reality, that if you have a large number of installers participating, no single installer will get the business that they need to justify the discount that the program would like to offer.
Well, I totally understand what you're saying, but that makes it okay for you to do this, but not okay for me.
That's right. And similarly, I understand this is Rosendale, and there is no way that I can make the argument to you that Westchester is currently in the middle of their campaign, and they're running out in 4 pairs of towns, and each pair of towns has just one single installer. That is not an argument for you. I understand that. On the other hand, it is part of the context.
And I will say, the other thing that concerns me is I feel like, maybe not on purpose, but I've been misled that was taken out of the picture. And I was more so, not your fault, but somehow,
Well,
this is where I feel like there's
I know,
been so much
Councilwoman,
misinformation.
Then I can only apologize.
Yeah.
There's no intent to mislead.
No, I know,
Now,
it's just
or-
that I
or-
feel it's
or
very new.
misinformation.
It's very new. I don't feel that you guys have all the bugs out of it before you figure out how you're going forward. And I think it's really risky. There's so many reasons why it's risky for the town to get involved. And, I for one, am not gonna support it at this time. I think that there might be something down the road that makes it more appealing to me, supporting it. But as of now, because of the insurance, because of, liability, because of choosing one or 3 businesses over the other businesses in this town, I understand what you're saying economically, but this is a small town. If you endorse 3, you may be putting 2 others out of business by doing that. So I'm not comfortable with that. And I think people that are going to join on this program, if it's saying that the town of Rosendale supports it or invites this group to do this, they believe that we've vetted these people and that we have approved this program, and I'm not comfortable with this.
I think you're
When you say Westchester, 3 other towns, I mean, compared to our town, you're matching apples and oranges. Like the supervisor said, a few years back, we lost our insurance for the town, and it was hard getting it. I personally feel we as the board and the supervisor, when it comes to many topics, we have it all sewed in, and there just seems like there's too many loose ends here. I need hours of more information to find out what you're getting at, because the bottom line is we can't afford a lawsuit, and that's the bottom line. The other thing is more information about this whole setup.
Yeah.
And if you don't do this, you're not stopping them from going forward. It may be helpful to them,
Right.
you know,
Well, one
but
of the reasons I
you're not
suggested.
killing their project.
Right, and I suggested they go to the chamber, or, you know, something that supports, is business, you know, run by business, or some support group that is going to be endorsing business, is really, that's their job, the chamber or somebody like that, or association, rather than the town, which has more restrictions on how we do business. So I think that, you know, I don't know why Westchester could get away with that or do
Well,
that, but.
and maybe Westchester wasn't the best example. I can just say
I
that.
mean, you could have 3 businesses in Westchester and still you're not gonna put everybody else out of business. 'cause there's
Yeah,
so many.
yeah. Councilwoman, I don't know what to say to the putting out of business argument. I think it's highly unlikely that any other business would be hurt. It's, you know, this is a very, there's a lot of interest in solar right now. And so, I have just a couple of other things I would like to say. And one is that it is indeed true, this is a 3-year campaign. So right now, we've been proposing Rosendale as one of the first towns. Kingston has committed through the mayor, through their economic development office, and through their Climate Smart Commission.
Have they actually voted to do this? Has it actually, the city of Kingston has actually voted to
No,
do it?
I'll repeat. It is the mayor's commitment, shared by the Department of Economic Development and the Commission of the Climate Smart Commission.
Because I also know that it was proposed that Woodstock would be a part of it, and I've spoken to the supervisor in Woodstock, and he's made it very clear that he's not taking part in this.
Can't speak to that. Can't speak to that.
Once again, apples and oranges, the city of Kingston to Rosendale, now Rosendale to Woodstock, is a little bit of similarity.
Right.
And with that being said, it might be.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's okay.
No, I know. I feel like there's a few things that need still some ironing
Yes,
out.
and one thing you mentioned, Councilwoman, is that you weren't able to find a website for this, and that's true, we don't have a website. We are actually operating significantly ahead of the curve. NYSERDA has not given full approvals, no money has started to flow, not $1 has been spent on this.
You know what? But you're not getting any brownie points by calling the councilwoman. She's a supervisor.
That's okay.
I just figured I'd help you out there, so.
My apologies.
Can I just ask, what's the role of the New York State then in this, if NYSERDA hasn't gotten the funding?
No, NYSERDA has the funding, they have
They've
not.
been giving it to you guys.
This is administered by NYSERDA, and everything we do has to be approved. So there's a statement of work, budgets, RFPs, all of that is in the process. One thing though I wanted to mention, and this may be only pertinent, when this comes, at some future point comes back to you, and I mention this because I don't know whether you've heard it before. We have a partnership with ROPCO, and part of another benefit of the Solarize program is facilitation of low-interest loans. It is a goal of this program specifically to reach out to moderate income or lower income families. This is a cast-a-wide net program, and that is why having a town endorsement is meaningful, because people who would not otherwise have thought of it might say, oh, well, my town is behind this. I guess it must be something worth looking into, even if that person had never imagined they could afford it.
The affordability to an individual savings is great, but it still does not tie up the loose ends
I
for a
understand.
possible lawsuit to the town.
And I think, it's kind of unfortunate that the same reason that you would like to see the endorsement of the town is the same reason that we are taking a chance that
Yes,
without all
yes.
this information.
I understand. So thank you very much.
Could you just describe what it would mean to you having the endorsement versus not having it?
Well, I will say, now the town already has the New York State Unified Solar Permit in place, so that's already a plus. I would say probably the number one thing or number one things
It's a top.
is content on the town website. And number two would simply be to be able to say, Solarize Rosendale.
Now, isn't there a concern about the word solarize too? I thought you
No.
could use it. That's been solved.
That has been thoroughly addressed, yes.
I knew there was some.
So there, the Westchester programs are currently going, the Southern Tier program is about to launch. So we're not in the forefront here, but as I say, we're still waiting for all of the,
And who's running their
approvals.
programs? Who's running their programs? Still through NYSERDA, right? NYSERDA
yes,
funding?
still NYSERDA.
But different
Well, the
non-for-profits
state
or
funding administered by NYSERDA.
NYSERDA, right?
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
Well, we don't own the name Rosendale, the town. I mean, they can call, you can, and in fact, I was thinking that it's not, wouldn't even really be the town role for us to say, call it
Oh.
Solarize
Mhm.
Rosendale.
Okay.
But I think you can call it whatever you want, right? It's not,
Yeah,
so you don't need the
Rosendale
town.
hardware, so we're not endorsing this, it's
Right,
Rosendale.
I mean, you can
True, you
use,
put it that
you
way.
can use that,
Yeah.
but,
So
and,
but I don't think you really answered John's question about, what, so we got the answer on one end, so what happens if you don't have it? What would you do?
Oh, we'll do our best.
You would do it anyway.
Yeah, I expect we will. I mean, this, Susan, Amy, without a town resolution, we've discussed, this doesn't preclude us from moving forward, but I know Susan's had discussions with Chamber and others. Basically, our gut feeling is that there is enough support in town to make this go. On the other hand, we may sort of regroup and say, let's wait for the next wave, which is certainly possible.
My gut feeling is just to protect the town and
Mhm.
to make sure that we always have an insurance coverage and we don't put it in jeopardy.
Right.
So when you weigh that to just having an endorsement for you,
Yeah,
it's like this, you're looking for an endorsement, but we have a higher stake at endorsing you, and I think we ought to follow suit with Woodstock, which is a similar town, and they were, I guess, adamant, or they weren't gonna do it. I think we have to, my belief or feeling is follow suit.
I think he had the same concerns I did, that, not endorsing one person over another, one business over another, liability. Same story,
Yes.
it's really the same.
and I have
concern.
spoken to Supervisor Wilbur, and I know he does share those, has those same issues. I don't, other than that, I can't say anything definitive, but I know there's a lot of support in Woodstock still. And so it has not come before the Woodstock Town Council. It has not left their environmental commission yet. So we haven't gotten that far. I really.
I understand that
I don't
someone
know.
did speak to their town board, but they, he told me they did.
That I
Someone-
might have,
Yeah.
better brought it might have,
somebody
I'm sorry, it
brought-
was before my time.
Yeah, somebody brought it to the town board.
Yeah, I have met with the Environmental Commission, and I was introduced by Transition Woodstock. So Transition Woodstock is the community organization that's taking the lead, and I've met with the Environmental Commission, who has, a draft resolution. Draft resolution is your document, it's
Yeah,
not
and-
ours,
and-
it's
and
your
the
document.
thing that I will also reiterate is, it's not the way towns do business, and
Mhm.
that's one of the concerns. It's not the way we do business. We don't do a procurement in this way, so it becomes,
Mhm.
a little bit hard to support that if we're gonna have an umbrella in some way over
Right.
this, so.
And I think that sort of begs that question of whether or not we have a safe enough distance by supporting the program. Are we really supporting the installers or not? And so, coming into this, my own feeling was, the best case scenario is that we could come up with language that we could all live with safely tonight that would answer our concerns in terms of insurance and legal. And frankly, legal, not legal,
That's okay, I won't be.
but even reaching out to the Association of Towns, they don't quite get it yet.
Yeah, I couldn't
Which
get
is just,
Yeah, there's not.
I couldn't get a
you know,
straight
it's
answer.
a virtue, it speaks both to the innovation of the program, but also it's a
Fair
reality of
enough.
what we're waiting
Fair
for.
enough.
Precedents to
Yeah,
look at.
and I didn't have any documents to give them, so.
But I think what I've been hearing is in terms of reducing the soft costs, nobody with the town has an issue with that in terms of helping.
Well, I mean, I think it's a great program to make it more affordable to people, obviously, but, I don't think that, and I will kind of.
But if they were to use the rec center or work with the environmental commission, does that, can we, is it worth trying to parse out the two aspects? The soft costs at the front versus the bulk, saved by buying bulk at the end with a reduced number of installers. So I guess I'm wondering, is it worth trying to figure out if we can kind of meet halfway on this?
Well,
Or is it,
I think
Better
I
work.
think it's too involved.
I think,
there's too
I'm not
much.
comfortable with a resolution,
okay.
but what I would ask Mary Lou is, would it be okay to say that we're okay with the environmental commission or some part of, some people in the town doing an educational program to introduce the program at the rec center or something
I'm
like that?
okay with that, as long as they put the waiver saying that we're not endorsing it,
Mhm.
it's simply an educational.
Yeah. So
program.
that could
So-
be some way to, get it to the public, but not be endorsed.
So the Association of Towns did say that towns can on their websites.
Well, we do
post
other
community
businesses,
Yeah, you do
so
links to it.
events.
I don't have a
So
problem with that.
We could post something on the
And I talked to
website.
Susan about that early on. I said,
Uh-huh.
we have other businesses that link to our website, there's a page for them. So that I have no problem with.
Mhm.
It could be on there as a link to, let people know, educate. But, maybe we could just vote to, allow, a use of either the rec center or here to let people, find out about the program. But I don't want to be the town to be endorsing it. That's the way I would look at it.
Supporting the goals was still too close to the.
I still have a problem with the fact that not everybody could anybody could become a vendor of that kind of.
Any certified company, right?
Yeah, I would be happier to see that anybody could, if they could meet qualifications but it's not my program, so
Mhm.
you can do what you want.
Mhm.
So the other question that I want to pose is if we are able to reach some form of compromise, is that worth it, or would it be better that we try to see how it goes with the first wave, and Rosendale
Yeah.
hopefully still be able to apply for one.
Chris, I don't, at
There's a
this
lot of
moment,
value.
I don't know how we'll have to talk about it and say, oh,
Maybe that's what we have to do. is let
No, it's a
them know
matter
how
of-
to figure out.
yeah.
But I just
The
We
want
problem
have
is
very
they
limited
stand in no way
resources
tonight,
and-
we're not ready to make a decision tonight based on the legal issues and,
But
I mean, if the board I don't think we need a resolution or anything for us to go forward with letting them use the rec center if,
As I say, you let others
yeah,
do that, you treat them the same
If they're
as
sponsored.
everyone else. Yeah.
we can work out some legal jargon that needs to be on any kind
A
of
little
sign.
note that has the
Yeah.
disclaimer.
So are we saying that the environmental commission can have host them, or?
I think we have to be careful that it's not run by anybody from
Right,
the
well, we can
town.
figure out.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I wonder if NYSERDA should think of a way to introduce language that allows towns to have a legal disclaimer in any kinds of liability and present that as part of
the
that.
legislature to exempt towns from
Yeah, that's the only way that we
liability.
can
They'd have
do
to
that.
pass a law to do that.
They'd have to pass
Chris,
the
I
law.
know you had the language from our RFPs, which, the installers are bound to, which says that the contract is solely between the homeowner or small business and the installer, and it is specifically indemnifies all other parties,
Yeah.
including
That
the
doesn't
town.
really insulate them.
Indemnifies them as long as there's money to indemnify.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ah,
I mean,
is that the word, indemnify?
to recognize the value I feel personally that this program could potentially bring to the town, or whatever town you work with, as well as the extraordinary amount of work and flexibility that you've all demonstrated, and that Susan has demonstrated as well as a volunteer.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Sustainable Hudson Valley, Casco Valley.
And I would like to express our thanks for your time, Susan's time, Amy's time, Jim Luckner, and everyone who
I would love
is.
for it to not be in vain.
Yeah.
I just want to make
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and the council as a whole, you've put significant time into this, and we appreciate it.
But I didn't catch who said it, but, if NYSERDA wanted to go to the legislature and say, in support of this program, could you pass legislation that, exempts municipalities, counties, towns, cities from liability? That's a different situation. You probably still have that business question, Gene,
The
that you
business
have, but from
question.
the legal standpoint, whether they'll do that or not, I don't know, but it would have to be enacted in the legislature.
Our assembly.
I mean, I know that our insurance agent was pretty clear that it would put us at risk.
Uh-huh.
And we're in the middle of renewing the yearly
Uh-huh.
plan,
Yes,
and,
right.
I'd have to say, yeah, we're doing this, and guess what?
Uh-huh.
There goes the rates too. So those are the kind of things, and he pretty much said, you can't be doing, we're not covered to take care of something that somebody's doing for someone else. It would be like insuring everybody in the town, and we don't do that. So,
It's very unfortunate in the times we live in that you have to be so
careful.
in tune, so careful. I feel for you because I'm sitting here listening. I'm sure you got the right idea. You have good people, but the fact that where we live in this day and age, you have to watch every little move that you make so you don't get the mousetrap. I know. I work in a prison. I see it every day. So please, I feel for you and I understand, but it's just too much of a risk that we could put the town in with all these loose ends, I feel.
Do you want to
No,
hold the board?
I'm not to beat a dead horse, but I just want to confirm, Mary Lou, it is your legal opinion that we can't tweak this resolution in a way that, protects the town.
Not if you're gonna be endorsing them,
Well, but
A resolution.
that's a question here. I know, that specifically does not say endorse.
Right, it says invite, you're inviting them.
Let me suggest another word. Welcome.
Who supports the goals of it?
Yeah, I was just going to support
Without talking with the town of Woodstock, which is a comparable town, and they didn't do anything with it, I'm going to tell you, I wouldn't vote if it was to come to it. Any word that you use or any term, I would abstain or say no.
Yeah, if it was just Solarize in general,
Yeah, we support
Solarize in
alternative
general.
forms of energy in the town,
Right.
That's different, but you're.
Once again,
you're
the
taking
time
a
and age
particular
that we
program which
live
is
in,
gonna
I'm sorry.
Use particular contractors, it's just,
How,
You know,
wanna
how
just
nothing would
poll-
ever
Do you want
happen,
to
but-
pull the board to see where everybody is with this?
kind of get consensus.
Sure, but I don't know, so I'll go first and you'll tell me if I get it right. I'm not sure if I said clearly, but I don't share the same issues with regards to individual businesses. I respect your position. I feel like that my job here is to try to do the most good for the most residents, as long as it doesn't harm others. However, that gets to the insurance question, and unfortunately, I'm not comfortable gambling with driving up our insurance rates at this time. So I don't really regret that after all the work that's been done, I don't feel confident and safe on that front. Conceptually, you have me. In the long run, if this board felt that we might be able to come to consensus and opt into a later wave. I would hope that we could do that. At this point, I don't feel like I can take the risk on insurance and taxes and such. And this came in today, which is what I was trying to put out there earlier, that we're still gathering this information
Yes.
because we're under the impression we're
Yes.
working with you to try to meet a deadline of this month.
Yes.
Bob, I think we got your consensus.
You know, once the attorney says we're good to go, then right now, I'm sorry.
I think I've expressed my concern on those two issues that I think are still floating out there, picking, selecting several and not everyone being able to do this, and the issue of liability for me is very important.
The spirit of the program I'm completely with, and I want to do anything to advance the cause of solar. I mean, the discount for us and having more residents just put up solar just because this program would exist is a great thing. It's a great thing for the planet. And if we do everything possible in transition and sustainability and reducing carbon, we'll still maybe just barely survive in 70 years. Like, we have to try as hard as we can to do things like this. Yet I still I feel like I'm kind of a new board member, and I don't quite have comfort with this yet. And I would love it to be a win-win. Win
Yes.
for Solarize, the community, and the town body. And I'm anxious to learn more and be won over.
Well, as I've stated, I'm very comfortable with the program, and I think it's incredibly valuable in making solar more accessible and achieving the goal we need to achieve of drastically expanding renewable energy in New York State. I would have liked to have seen any resolutions from any other towns in the state. I think that would be really valuable if such resolutions were passed. It would be really helpful to see what they work. And if you can find those and share them with the board, who knows what could happen down the road. My concern is that our town attorney has advised against it, and so should we be in favor of it, and something goes wrong, I think that probably puts us in a particularly bad situation from a liability standpoint. So at the present time, I would say, unfortunately, I don't think we can do it. Having said that, personally, I will personally advocate for this program in Rosendale as an individual, and I think it's a really promising program.
And I would ask the question whether you might be interested in still going forward with the program without town endorsement, because it's still, like everyone said here, it's a benefit to the community, it's just a liability to the town. So, we encourage you to.
I have heard it, and I believe I understand all of your reservations.
Can I just reiterate that this is, to a large extent, it's not you, it's us. That we are in the midst of, that Rosendale specifically is in the midst of working out insurance and other issues. And so in addition to appreciating all the work you've done, put into this, I want to be sure that the public and the press is aware that this isn't Rosendale saying this isn't a good program. It's Rosendale just sadly acknowledging right now we can't avail ourselves of it.
But, I think Mary Lou pointed out that we had read early on in some of the early literature that you could still offer to the community without the town endorsement, and if that's possible,
It is true.
I think we'd all like to see that happen, in spite of my personal issue that. Yes, Susan?
Yeah, I mean, we do live in a very litigious world. Insurance companies have far too much influence on it. I, for one, don't accept that this town cannot find a way to support this project. And I would like to see us find a way for Rosendale formally and officially to come out in support of this project. Maybe that means doing some more legal research. It certainly might mean looking at how other towns have done it. But I think we ought to be able to support the things that we support. So let's try to find a way. That would be my view.
All I can say is that, we're elected by the people to make the best judgment for the town.
Totally.
For 6,500 residents in this town, where you are representing a much smaller group. And with that being said, I would hate for something to go sour, because Murphy's Law is always there, and then all of a sudden the fingers are pointed at us. So unless the attorney gives me the thumbs up, I wish you the best, but I can't.
I'm not criticizing the town.
Oh.
You're doing your job, right? I'm criticizing the situation in which the town has to come to that conclusion.
As I said before, this is the times we live in that's created that we have to live by, and it's not
But
our
we also
fault.
need to fight back against it and find ways to do the things that
Well,
are
I think
really
a couple of
important.
things were suggested,
Yeah.
we could try to get legislation in place to protect the town. I think that was a great suggestion. And I think that's one of the things that, whether we make it this round or not, if it's not supported by the town as far as a resolution or an invitation, it's not going to be a liability to the town, so you can still do it, and still make it available to the public. And I think we can still solarize Rosendale without this resolution.
You personally have my support. I'm all for you.
I also often say exactly what you just said about, with the pressure to be litigious, we must reflexively, go in the other direction. Like if we just buckle to all that change in culture, it's, I won't have it. But the way to do it is through creative solutions. We have to,
Carefully.
right, we have to really
Determination.
thoughtful and
Yeah.
kind of outsmart the system.
It is sad. It's sad.
And that's the path we're on. We've been searching for that, so we'll continue.
Well, we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you.
So,
Thank you for granting this meeting and that on the agenda.
no problem. Especially the next thing on the agenda is going to take us. So, as you know, we had a public hearing some months ago. A lot of concerns about, some changes, some of the things in the first draft were mentioned in the public hearing. I have spent probably maybe 6 or 7 hours with Jen, I think 5 maybe with Chris. I mean, definitely multiple hours with each board member to review their comments and their concerns, and probably 3 times that much with Mary Lou to go over this and come up with something that, we tried to take what the public had to say, what each board member had to say, and come up with something that would work. And the Ulster County Planning Board and the Town Planning Board. The consensus was to come up with something that would limit the code overlay district to be the Route 32 corridor, and schools, and we added churches after John and I went to the White Elephant session at the Association of Towns, because that was a big issue about what to do with churches, so we added the churches in there too. And I don't know if you guys have had a chance to really review it. We weren't going to vote on it. I wasn't asking anyone to vote on it today, but I would like to see if we can try to put this on the agenda for next month to vote on. And then we can move on to the chicken law. But Mary Lou's here specifically to help us and guide us in understanding any questions or, understanding anything about how things are written and how that affects the vote.
Well, of course, I always have things.
Of course you do.
That is my nature. But I do want to say that, we had a really productive session, the three of us working together on this, and, you know, I think that this is, you know, a much better piece of code, a good piece of code, and you know, it was, continues to be, it was a long birth, but, I just, can we go through things?
Sure, that's why,
Okay.
that's why Mary Lucy was able to do that.
Okay, some things are small, and these first things I think are like vestiges from the old draft.
Just, be sure you're using the one that Jill cleaned up. Because you guys got an email of without any of the.
With the formatting.
The form, it wasn't formatted, she gave you the
Right.
kind of like all the different fonts and everything
Right.
skipped,
That's
so.
right.
Yeah.
So there was a cleaner version that you got today.
Yeah, no, okay, I'll compare to make
Yeah,
sure I've
just-
got it. The third line,
On page one,
on page one, it.
under purpose, you mean?
Yeah, under purpose, it refers to or tracts of land, but we basically.
Yeah, that might have just been left, right,
Right,
Mary Lou?
so we've taken that
So
out.
we can take that out.
And then it's the same thing in the, let's see, there's the first purpose paragraph, and then underneath that it says the EO permits a broad range of,
Where, oh, yeah,
of
So we'll take
uses
that
that work in
one.
harmony to accomplish the following objectives. And then I would take out the word vacant.
And vacant, yeah.
Yeah. This was something that was important to Chris, so I'll just ask Chris if it continues to be important to him. Page 2, at the top, B, the application for an approval of the EEO shall, you had suggested follow, as
Is it
opposed to be
consistent?
consistent with. It should follow the procedures for the zone.
isn't consistent
Everyone.
typically the right language though, Mary Lou?
That was your recommendation
Either-
sometime. It's up,
Yeah, it was, if the language is deemed to be okay by the attorney, I'm okay with it. That
Okay.
was probably actually being used for saying that it should be the same.
okay, all right. Fine with me, it's fine with me. I just, you know, had a note from your comments. And, you know, it's really great, the addition of the conceptual plan. Okay, on the bottom of page 4, number 3. It says if the board elects to hold a public hearing, but I thought that.
If you don't just out and out reject it. You
Okay,
have options.
But you
They-
have to have a public hearing if you do.
Right,
go
you
forward.
can't go forward without a public hearing,
Okay.
but you might not even get to
All
that
right.
point.
I
You
just
might
wanna
look at everything and say, that's not happening.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to,
Do we
but
need to be
that's
more
not,
specific there,
because
Mary
it
Lou?
Well, I
does
think we
seem,
put that
it
in as the
does,
choices. They can reject it or,
maybe that could be
We
made
can
more
clean that
clear,
language up, just-
because
yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
it sound like it's an option.
So which, I just don't know where that is, where is
So
it?
it's number 3
the
on
previous
page
page.
4.
Town board review.
I thought you said on page 4.
okay, yeah.
It is
Well,
page
in
4.
B, it says the town board shall have the discretion to reject the application or to hold a public hearing with regard to the rezoning application. And then it says if they decide to hold a public hearing, that's the second
It's
option.
like
If
a
you
follow
have
in that
reject it,
sentence, I see.
So,
So it's
right, this
B1,
is all
B2.
part of B.
All part of B, I see. So first, they have the discretion to reject the application or to hold a public hearing with regard to the rezoning application.
Right.
So do we want to
So-
clean up that sentence a
I
little
would just
bit
say
more?
if the town board holds a public hearing.
No,
No,
because
you can't.
if they reject the application,
It's
you're
over.
not,
If
you're not
your other
having
option is
anything.
to hold a public
Or you have
hearing.
a public
Okay.
hearing, because you're
So
going
I
to.
think it's okay, so if
Consider-
you
As long as
opted
you all
to.
think it's,
Consider.
You can,
you all
you-
think,
But consider
My
before.
reading of 3B1 is you have two options.
okay,
Reject it or do the hearing.
or hold a
And
hearing.
to
Right.
Okay.
3B2, if you do the hearing, this is how you do it.
Right.
If you all think it's clear, then,
We could look at how those are.
okay. I had circled churches, maybe you guys could just share some of here, because that was new since we, had talked to adding churches. So we have in town,
Sure.
we have the Catholic Church, are there any, well, there are a number of churches. So
Wait,
I mean, the bell tower is a good example.
Yeah.
You know, you have a church that, it's difficult to find a use for churches, you know, they have, I think that was the thing that, they also were pointing to armories, which we don't have, but
Right.
churches and armories were, big. I think they mentioned schools too, but the biggest thing, you know, they were saying churches, you know, often get torn down and you lose that beautiful building that's in the community because nobody can figure out what to do with it. So, and they said, do not do a variance, do a rezoning. So we felt this was a clear indication that this should be part of this overlay district.
And did they talk at all about the particular zones they're in, or any, about whether they're residential zones?
They were in everything.
Right, but they didn't
They-
have
they
any
had-
recommendations
No,
about zoning?
they just said they should be rezoned to be able to accommodate multiple uses, commercial, apartments. They had lots of different examples that they, of churches throughout the states that they were using examples of. But we thought this was a good fit to this. It was pretty much exactly
Originally,
what
we
we
had
wanted the schools in.
any building.
You could end up with a church being an eyesore just like Towson City.
Right,
Basically, that was
when you mentioned churches, are you kind of zeroing in on the High Falls Church that will be sold?
I wasn't, we were just using that, I mean, that's a perfect example. Now, that's, church has just recently closed, and there's.
It's closed, it's gonna be sold.
So here you go, we do have a church.
That's gonna be a real obstacle because
The
there's really
chapel
no
in
property
High
goes
Falls.
with it.
Right.
Matter of
Oh,
fact,
and,
they cut the septic drain off.
That's such
So
a
that's,
beautiful
that's
building.
it, and that's an example of what do you do with it.
Um,
Chris? Yes,
Yes,
yes.
it has closed for a while now.
Yeah, I know. I always hope somebody will come back.
Yes.
This is really a question for Mary Lou, but are you using the word schools and churches, or are you saying school buildings and church buildings?
I think it was how did we word
I
it?
think we had buildings.
It says school buildings and churches, so maybe church buildings.
I'm just thinking on Broadway in Kingston, there is a church, which is actually an old concrete block building near the overpass.
Yeah.
That has been a church now for 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, I
Not the
suggest-
kind of building you're trying to say.
No, maybe we should say church-style buildings or church buildings.
Well, I don't want to say church style, because somebody will have a house somewhere that they built to look like a church.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you go down south, you think they're the 2-car garages, no.
That's an interesting question.
Okay,
Well,
are we still-
we're trying to figure this out.
Church buildings?
Yeah, I mean, but
It's how we interpret it. I would say, if somebody came up to me and said, well, we
We
have
have this
church,
brick
we have a
building.
church in the back, in the cellar of this apartment complex, I'm gonna say, no, that doesn't fit. And I would think the rest of the board would say, no, this isn't what we're looking at. But we have that discretion, right?
yeah.
So,
Well,
I
what's
think
the-
You can
what-
look at
what's-
the particular property to determine.
So-
whether it's.
Right.
Somebody
what-
could challenge that.
why
though,
not
right, if
put
it's-
building, what's the downside of just adding?
I think
the
we
word
can.
building?
Right, but even the,
She's not
even
sure that
the
would
concrete
still
block
protect us.
building on Broadway in Kingston
It's still a church
is a
building.
church building.
Right, it's
Right.
a church building, right.
Yeah.
And you may be able to say, if, like, we don't have a building like that, but if we did, you would probably be able to say, there's something else you could use that for under the current zoning.
Right.
If,
I mean,
I know exactly.
Would it be appropriate to say churches that cannot be easily reused do we want to be more specific? We could say churches that,
Well, I think the entire thing
Explains it,
is
yeah.
that it's on redevelopment of underutilized properties.
So,
Yeah, that might cover it
So I
right there.
I
think that
think
you're
that we
okay
can-
there.
Yeah.
all right, so let's leave it as is. I mean, remember that everything here, the underlying factor is that it's the discretion of the board. So we could say it's not appropriate, and that's the end of it.
Is,
Okay.
Samir, are you gonna be here tonight that we vote, when we actually vote on it?
You guys would like me to, it's up-
Well,
it's up to
we wouldn't need her if we can get all this.
I was gonna say, if you all, you have to have language that you agree to on your desks 8 days before you vote.
You had another question?
Oh,
Jen?
yeah. I'm almost done though, but I'm getting to the bigger things. So what, what we never got to in our discussions because we ran out of day was the uses, the SIC code. What you ultimately decided to do was to take out the list of specific uses and follow the Marlboro model of putting in criteria to try to minimize the issues with that. I'm okay with that approach. If it's like, as long as the language is, specific and clear enough.
I think it's pretty clear.
And we also have in those things that you guys absolutely did not want to have.
Right. Well, all right, well, I have two things to ask.
Okay.
What were they?
Um,
That was the only ones I remembered us discussing.
Right. The other one, which was in the.
Which is, what page is it?
Well, I guess we're on 7, is car lots. I don't think we should incentivize car lots. That was in the that was a prohibited use in one of the rare few, or I think it may have been one of 2 prohibited uses in the Marlboro.
Where's the part that says what can't be used? What's
It's page 6 and 7.
I don't have.
Oh, sorry, that's my old.
I was gonna say, I don't know. The numbers don't work, Jen, because they're different
Well, what
pages.
subsection?
It's, sorry, I'm
You mean,
using the old draft.
You
So,
mean districts, land use allocation?
it's, where'd it go? Okay, economic development district. Oh, wait, it was changed. Hold on.
Start work at 7 in the morning.
Sorry. Okay, so on the original draft that Jill sent, under C, it was under C,
Was that one of the ones I
it's,
called you about?
it said
Mary Lou?
C.
Yeah, we'd added it in.
I think I
don't know
made a
if
couple of changes that were stuff that kind of like, after I reviewed it
Yeah,
again.
she called me and said, hey, we had some uses that aren't allowed.
What, I don't know where it is now, but it had been F. The following uses are prohibited in EEO districts. So has that been moved to a different?
I wonder if when she reformatted it, that came out somehow.
So what it has,
Because I think it was.
what it has is,
What page, what section would it be?
it should be C.
You have it in your computer?
1, districts, land use allocation, and permitted uses. It should be 1, overlay district types and requirements.
Can I see your old version?
Yeah, it's F at the bottom. So F has been dropped off, it ends at E.
Yeah, that was not supposed to, I bet that happened when she
Something screwed
reformatted
up
it,
here,
because
yeah.
that is supposed to be in there.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was storage units, this is,
it continues to the next page.
yeah, it was storage units, gas stations, mining,
Right,
and you want to add car lots.
Yeah.
There's something wrong here, that page is missing.
all right,
So,
here. I've got to use this one as
I
a
didn't
guide.
get a chance to review it before I.
Okay, so there's an F there that prohibits some uses. I want
What was
to
D?
add
'Cause I
car
don't have
lots
D
to
here
that.
either.
And car lots violates the design
Yeah.
guidelines.
Okay, so we're not arguing that. What was D? Because I want to make sure we,
D is the town board may modify the following land use allocations to achieve the purpose and objectives.
all right, so that's up here.
And then E, adaptive reuse of existing structures and associated land shall be permitted.
Okay, so is it over, it was
it's
under
just
one that the
It was,
restriction?
yeah, it was F, it was
Yeah,
the
one
last,
Oh, okay.
it
So
was,
that's,
Yeah.
it was, there's no F in the latest
so
draft.
There's
maybe,
no one
did I
F,
do that
one
with
F.
you and not give it to her, maybe?
Possibly, you may have, because I
Yeah.
sent, well, I sent you and Jill a new one, but she may have just picked up the wrong one when she reformatted it.
That's probably what it
That's
was.
possible.
That's probably
Thank
it.
you,
So
Jill.
we We may have to check and see
Yeah,
a
we'll
couple
check.
other changes that we had. What were the other ones, you think? I'm sorry, so.
Okay,
it
so if there were other
was gas, it was gas stations?
So what's in there now is 1, storage units and or facilities, 2, gas stations, 3, mining, and I would propose adding 4 car lots. And then, the last piece, I had emailed, you and Mary Lou in December about this, to me, the comprehensive plan seems pretty clear that the Gateway District is envisioned as this, a continuation of Main Street, a commercial piece, and I'll read you the parts of the code, the comprehensive plan. And my concern is allowing, industrial uses in that particular B2 district. And I'm just gonna read this part of the comp plan. Rosendale should ensure that the commercial development standards or guidelines created for the B2 zone adjacent to the Rosendale hamlet promote a scale and form of development that relates visually to the Main Street Business District while enhancing pedestrian links between the B2 zone and the Main Street Business District. This would serve two purposes: creating a stronger conceptual link between these two areas, will expand the footprint of the downtown to include business located in the B2 zone. And then the second one is about pedestrian links. And then later on page 33, the comprehensive plan says maintain the existing business and industrial zones along Route 32 and 213 as compact nodes. It seems like the downtown, like very much a part of the downtown. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect it all with the Finding Rosendale study and get a sort of thriving commercial downtown down there. And there was also, having sat through the planning board meetings with the truck, just the parking of the trucks with that neighborhood back there with, that alone, people were really upset. They were like, that's an industrial use, if they shouldn't be there. And so what I was gonna suggest is for the B2 Gateway, so there's an F, and then you could have a G. The following uses shall be restricted, and then the B2 Gateway zone will be restricted to commercial and residential uses consistent with the comprehensive plan.
We do have earlier under, I think we're on the 5th page now, in the information to be provided by the applicant, there's something in there that they have to explain to us how the use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So I think it's in there that you're gonna be,
Right.
That's something you have to evaluate, is whether it's consistent.
Yeah, I felt that language would limit us if there was a light industrial that we felt was not going to be an impact to the gateway. I use the example of, furniture making, foreign furniture, or something like that. There could be light industrial that would fit in, let's say, Fans Plaza, where I don't feel that it would be, but that would be something the town board could make a decision on based on each project individually. I want to be careful that this doesn't limit us to not be able to consider something that might be a light industrial that isn't going to be a negative impact to that neighborhood. Because the most negative impact to those neighborhoods is a huge vacant building that is becoming an eyesore and crumbling. So I think we have to weigh those, that's where you have that option to make a decision. Is this fit the comprehensive plan? Is it going to be, is it going to enhance the neighborhood, or is it going to be a deterrent to the neighborhood? And I think that we can make that decision. I think we have a little bit of flexibility in here to be able to do that.
They would have to show us that it still fits the comprehensive plan.
I guess when I think of industry uses, I don't think of that. Like, I don't think of a furniture shop.
Well, that's why I thought that
I mean,
we
is
had
that
to
in-
be careful.
And I think that, right,
That was
yeah,
why I
that's
wanted
a-
to be careful not
that's-
to exclude those kind of businesses by saying, industry.
Yeah, there are things that are categorized as, that we don't think of as industrial, but they are industrial, and that's a good example.
But that's.
Well, we changed everything to light.
industrial.
Everything's been changed to light industrial.
Well, I
There's no
guess I
industrial.
would, I would,
Come on.
I guess I'd wanna hear what you all think, I mean, I see your point, but what I worry about, I always go to the bad board, and that's what I'm worried about. Like, I
Right.
go to the bad board, and the board is like, will let, something.
Don't forget, the bad board can change the law too. If they want
That was
something in,
something that's why-
unfortunately.
This law is being passed, so this board
By the
can
good
take
board.
the action that we wanna take. And that's what you gotta look at. You can't look at what might happen 10 years down the
Oh,
road. Because 10 years down the road, if they don't like our law, they can change it. So if the bad board comes along and says, we're gonna just let anything happen, they can make those laws change. And that's why people vote people out of office if you don't like what they did. I mean, we have to be careful not to worry about what the needs of the town might be 10 years ago, or what we're concerned about bad mistakes. Because I think we have a good law here that if we have an application before us, we can make sound decisions based on our good judgment and what we have in front of us. And we don't want to limit ourselves to not being able to make these decisions, because remember, this is about incentive. We want to make incentives for people to be able to come and make changes to the properties that we're concerned about. So it's not about writing the code over for the whole town. It's about making sure that some of these places that have been a drain and an eyesore for our community for, 20 years, we're taking action. People have been asking for this action to be taken for so long, and we're trying to do that. So I don't think we want to tie our hands to for instance, on Main Street, there's a guy that's making pickles in a little tiny shop.
Don't keep
He's
picking on him.
is he industrial or is he just a shop, So we have to be careful, because you could have somebody saying, well, you shouldn't let that furniture maker be in there because, you know what, he's not a little shop, he's an industry, he's got an industrial use. So if we have an overlay district that allows for a light industrial, we can look at the project, see what their impact would be, what kind of work are they doing, and make a decision based on that.
We gotta do something. If in one side of our mouth we say we support business, and on the other side of our mouth we scrutinize everything right down to a T, and meanwhile, we've looked at Tilson School for 30 years, I mean, I would throw just a can of latex paint on it to make it look better. It's horrible. I mean, you come into town, on the far side, John McCone's place, I mean, it's stagnant, and he's just waiting to do something with it. So by not doing anything, and once again, I feel comfortable if we revert to our attorney, and our attorney says this, let's move ahead, get some growth. It's also going to help our tax base. When people can start doing something with these dormant properties and better themselves in that, it's going to help the tax base in the town, which is going to be a plus on our budget and helping us grow more. So,
Now, remember that when a project comes before us and we don't think it's appropriate, or, they can use the underlying zoning. We still have regular zoning.
Exactly.
So anybody that is not a good candidate, you
Right.
have to use the regular zoning.
Right, so, right,
We're only talking about the B2 Gateway District, which is essentially,
That's where most of the
The rec
properties
center,
are that we're
right.
concerned about, though.
I just
Yeah,
want to
Fans,
clarify, it's
yeah.
the rec center, yeah,
Fans
it's
Plaza,
the plaza
It's
that
from
isn't there across from Market
the
Garden.
rec center
Right.
to fans.
Yeah.
To fans, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And right now, what's our gateway?
I mean, I will
It's
point
gonna be-
out that,
Okay.
How about soon
basically,
we'll have sushi?
they can do they've got all kinds of area that, they can do what they want from an area perspective. So there's a lot of incentives built into it. The bar is high for use
I don't think we're gonna see it in the
I think
next
that's
300
it.
to 400 years.
The bar is high, bar is high right now. What you're talking about is the area variance, but the use variance needs to be somewhat high too. It could be a mixed use, it could be light industrial. We want that use variance to be there too, not just the area variance. So I think that's where, you're looking at, I still think there's a
Is
lot of light
everyone
industrial.
com-
Well, that's why
everyone
I'm take a
comfortable?
poll on
I
that.
want
Yeah,
to
we
look
need
at
to
this,
dominate-
I want to look at
dominate.
the SIC codes.
What?
I would really want to look on the SIC codes, because on the face of it, it seems a little counterintuitive to say light industry in the gateway. In the same way that on the face of it, I took issue initially with the idea that we're offering incentive for residential development in a residential district. Which, as I'm saying it aloud right now, I realize I sound like the fool. But as I was looking at it in the draft, the idea was, well, you could already do this here, but if you do it a little differently, we're going to give you some extra. And so, I mean, the short version is that I want to look at the standard industrial codes to make an informed decision on it, and I can see.
You mean you want to check to see if some of those things we're talking about are part of the
Yeah, light
considered
industry.
industrial?
Yeah, I just want to, like, I wouldn't be prepared at this point to say.
Well, we're not asking
Yes or
to
no.
make a decision tonight, but my argument would be that I don't want to limit us when somebody who has a pottery shop or a
Yeah,
furniture
certainly that
store,
sort of thing would be.
something
wouldn't
that
wanna turn it
would
away.
consider industrial, and, people are reading the code, and that's what it's gonna look like. If you say, well, that's industrial, and then, oh, we can't do it there,
I want to
And
use
you
the
can
word.
always say no to anything.
I want to use the word
If you
common
feel it's
sense.
inappropriate.
Right, no.
I want to use the word common sense, but I think that's pretty much a term in the past. But, hopefully, once again, if we can help these people that are coming here, bringing business, bringing money, to step it up, help our tax base, help our budget, and then maybe, just maybe, we can hire two code enforcement officers full-time and start nipping at all these other issues that we can't seem to get a grasp on. So
one thing at a time.
So,
I'm just
Chicken
saying
goes
that.
next.
Let me do one thing
When's
at
the
a
last
time.
time you
We're-
got through one thing?
We're right there. Rosendale is like, we've got so much happening right now with the trestle, with the Oak Trail network, with everything else. We are a destination, and we are trying to make this whole area, this zone, that map right there, this whole area, support that, tourist and recreational economy. So that's
So let's
part
vote
of
on
it.
it.
I think, you gotta remember that even let's say somebody comes and they have something that might be classified light industrial, we're gonna still have to have a public hearing. And if there's people in the audience that say, we feel this is not the right fit, then we'll take those things into consideration. If they say, look, I think it's gonna be too much traffic, or it's gonna be, I think the applicant has to make a case for it, that it's a good fit. And we have to we have to be able to have an open mind to be able to evaluate all those possibilities. And I think that's what this is all about, evaluating possibilities.
And then after you evaluate the possibilities, if you say yes, have a public hearing, and say yes after that, they still have to go to the planning board for more cleanup.
everybody's made great points. I agree with every little bit. But the only thing about the gateway and the B2 is that I want the goals of the comprehensive plan do kind of articulate our way to get what we want, and as long as we're not, stepping outside.
We're not throwing the comprehensive plan away.
Right.
But I also don't know that when they say industrial and the comprehensive plan, it's not the same as what we're talking about. I think we just have to be careful. I think Chris made a good point, what are you gonna classify some of those small businesses that do light industrial? And if they are considered light industrial, I would like to keep that in there.
Right. No, I'm all for creativity in business. I mean, there could be a model of mixed use that's ingenious and it works great for the town, and feels like the gateway we want it to be, and is a great thing.
Like maybe there's something, I don't know, I'll give it some thought over the week or what do we have?
Well, 8 days before
You
April
know,
1st.
and the conceptual plan part, something that gets at that, or some, I don't know, maybe there's.
Maybe we could,
Chicken
maybe
farm.
we could be more specific about what we mean by light industrial for not so much listing the sick codes, please.
I was
but-
gonna say, right, you
yeah,
have to,
but light industrial,
come
then,
up yeah, that's a challenging description, because there may be light industrial things there that have not yet been invented.
Right,
well,
but you can.
we use an
describe-
example, of, you know, for this property, for instance, what if somebody came to us and wanted to manufacture some small thing in one of the classrooms, you know, where they're building little, I don't know, computer things or something, you know, that would be industrial.
Widgets.
But it would fit here, and it wouldn't be,
Acme.
it wouldn't be out of the realm to want that to be in a place like this. So I think that's kind of where I was coming from.
I see where you're, you know.
Yeah, so
what
I
you're
didn't
trying
want,
to-
I'm not trying to say that we should
Right.
allow, you know, a bottling plant, but, you know.
I didn't say it.
Don't go
so-
there.
Not anybody's bottling plant, but.
All right, so there's two other things. One is a process thing, not the text, it seems to me, I mean,
What, are you looking at
No.
something?
no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
it's about process. You know, the changes are substantial to this, document.
They are,
and-
but we only made changes that came either from the public, from the planning boards,
Or
and
the
from the
town.
comments.
And from the town.
Right, it was only from comments. We made sure of that, because there were other things we thought of and said, wait,
Right.
then you're you know, that's why you have the.
So would you consider, I mean, to me, eliminating the uses, that whole approach is pretty significant change.
But with the comment from the county was to use this other.
Rather than do that, to get
rather-
right,
Take
right.
out the sick codes and use the, Marlboro
Underlying
plan.
zoning, though, they said, was what the county's comments were quite contradictory.
Yeah, there were
But,
parts of the country,
um,
absolutely.
But they made a comment about relying on the underlying zoning. So,
But they also said to use this Marlboro plan, which had no sick codes and had that,
Right, they recommended
Right.
that would be the better way to go. Looking for the comments.
if that's your opinion, you
Yeah, and
know,
I mean, and I've
will
thought about this a
verify
lot.
that, but
I've thought about this a lot,
I was
Jen.
under the impression that if you have,
Right.
you know, a piece of code, you had a public hearing and things changed, you know, some people weren't at the previous hearing,
Mhm.
so, you know, you're not giving them the opportunity to,
Well, except that everything is based
announce
on
hearings.
those things. And we've done this like where we've totally rezoned towns. You know, you have the public hearings and then you get all sorts of changes and you make them, and that's a help. As long as we're not, you know, pulling them out of the air for things that we've thought of later.
Okay. All
But
right,
if they
that's
come
not-
from the comments, we're
Okay.
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 And I thought about it a lot, and there were things
and we had
we
quite a
thought,
few conversations about it too.
yeah, we did, and I said, well,
'Cause
if you want
I
to start
mean, I
into that
actually
stuff,
think-
that didn't come up anywhere, that's a new public hearing, you
Right.
know?
And I think we did address most of the issues, so there
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
wouldn't, even if there was a public hearing, not be a lot of comment. I'm just for that, just wanna make sure that process.
No, I
public
think we're fine
input
on that.
Is.
You can't make
of
substantial
help.
changes 8
Okay.
days after, that's why you have the 8-day
Right.
period. You can't like make substantial changes
Right.
right before you vote, you have to have it in final form.
Yeah,
Maybe
for
you
8
can
days.
correct typos before you vote,
Right.
but.
The last thing, again, it's related to this, but this is a great opportunity now that we're expanding the commercial parts of town to consider extending the design guidelines and standards to the whole town.
I don't think we wanna do this with this, but I think we, you know,
Then we're
I-
talking a new
I-
public hearing.
Right.
let me just say
Right,
this.
that is a big public. No, I'm not saying, I mean,
You're
you
saying as
don't
the next
have to,
step.
it doesn't have to be, right, you have to have a public
So
hearing
add
for
it
that,
after
you
the
can still
changes.
adopt this with Route 32 as a placeholder, but I
Didn't we
would
put
like
that
to
in
see
there?
that.
The design guidelines would be followed?
Yeah, they're in here,
Yeah.
they're in here, but
So I'm
in
confused, what are
general.
you asking?
Well, we have commercial, we have other commercial and industrial parts of town
Mhm.
that are not on Route 32.
So you'd like to,
Yeah.
not in this document, but you'd
Yeah.
like to look at that as the next step?
Yeah, and the ZRC had extended that to multifamily housing. I think that was actually at the planning board's recommendation, and then that.
Why was it only Route 32 when it was done? Why were the guidelines only Route 32?
That was a direct recommendation of the comprehensive plan.
So I think it needs a little bit more research to figure out how to incorporate it in other areas. If it's not going, is it gonna follow the comprehensive plan? to do
Well,
that?
it's the exact same, code, pretty much, that was adopted for the Route 32
But it
guidelines.
wouldn't fit
It's
everywhere.
basically
It wouldn't fit
codified.
everywhere.
Only industrial and commercial, only
But
for
there's
industrial, commercial, multifamily, and even in the Route 32 design guidelines, it's for new structures or structures that are more than 50%
Being redone.
redone. Yeah. And even if in the immediate term, a document has to be produced. There is no Route 32 guidelines to give people right now. It doesn't exist because it was never made after the draft was adopted. The draft was adopted by the town board together with the comments of the planning board and the environmental commission as an appendix to the comprehensive plan. But the planner was done, Fairweather, I guess, and was paid, and so no one created a final document.
But if it
And
was
instead-
adopted and needs to be part of what the comprehensive plan.
Well, that's what she's saying, it
It's
wasn't.
an appendix to the comprehensive plan theoretically, but no, all of the languages in the ZRCs, everything that was adopted, the planning board's questions about shielding, the environmental commission, stormwater, and all that stuff has been incorporated into the ZRC's text for extending it to the whole town. So you can change the title of that to Route 32 or whatever, or take out whatever code references there are. But right now, there's no, my point is, there is no document to hand somebody.
Where is the
Do
document?
you know when it was?
It-
Yes, Jen?
Uh,
Because we can have Mandy go back and look for the minutes and then figure out exactly what it is.
Oh,
And you're
no.
saying the document has to actually be produced.
Well, somebody, yeah, if you're gonna have people follow it, they've
Yeah,
gotta be
sure.
able to see it.
If
And
it's in the
so-
CRC's final report, I think that's on their website.
I can tell you, because that is what happened at the time, I was there. I was like, who's gonna put this document together now that it's been done? Because they had to create a document that inserted the changes that were adopted at the time the town board took that action. And then the decision was just made that, oh,
Did
well.
you I just saw you volunteer, right, Michelle?
I mean, I have the materials because from the ZRC, I mean, it's all there.
You need
The first
more
thing to do is
you
look
need more
right in the
busy work,
minutes
right,
and see.
Jen?
Yeah. You can, right.
Our minutes?
You can.
Yeah, the town board
but-
minutes to see
Yeah.
exactly
Well, you don't-
what
you-
was adopted.
Right, you don't want that, you want what was adopted.
Yeah, that's,
Right, the
so you know
text.
exactly what to put in so that we
Right.
can say, oh, you're doing that here. You have to
Because
follow these as
Right.
well.
that wouldn't be the same as what the code people do, right? Because it's a comprehensive plan.
Right.
Right. I mean, it was done. What I sent you
I was gonna
is
say, is
what
this-
was done.
Right.
That was done for the ZRC. All I'm saying is that they put, the difference is it says it's for multifamily housing and that it's for the whole town. But it's, if you, I mean, I actually have a red line version.
Why can't you just print it out and change the title to it?
We can do
Put it
that.
in the add it to the comprehensive plan, that's it, and
right,
then we have a
that's probably the
document.
way to do it, but we just wanna make
Yeah.
sure it's exactly what
Right, no, I,
Yeah.
yeah.
those different
Yeah.
various pieces
Well, what
they
I
threw in
need
there.
is the original.
All right, we need to move on.
Okay.
We're talking about stuff that is not on the agenda.
Right, well, it is, because it's in this thing.
Yes.
It's in this
We
document.
only have an hour and 5 minute break.
That's it.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna take a
Before we have to
5 minute
start
break,
waving.
gang.
Girls, can I get this seat up in here? You know, I'm a little edgy tonight.
What else is new? Okay. We have a proclamation resolution here for Parkinson's Awareness Month.
Wait, no one else has any comments?
On what?
All
Oh.
right. All right, never mind.
I'm sorry. Did anybody else have comments on the overview that we wanted to? Bob's gonna kill me when
Yep,
you're not watching now, what you call it
We're-
tonight, Bob.
it's long gone.
Where's your
Sure, I
phone?
have one question, which is,
Huh?
can I share my questions with Mary Lou between now and next week?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just see, the only thing
I
is,
don't want to claim to not have
Okay,
questions,
go
but I
ahead.
don't
the only
have.
thing is, if you wanna do it in April, 8 days.
Right.
We can't make the changes at the first meeting and pass it at the
Okay.
second, cause that's only 7 days. But
Okay.
7 days excluding Sundays. Why did, you know, I don't know if
So
other
the
people have
changes
board
have to
happen
meetings
now
on
to make that?
Sundays, so
No, we
sometimes.
have, what's today's date? The 11th.
The
So-
11th.
Yeah.
Right, but I have to know what you kind of all
Right,
want
right.
in order to have the
Sure.
final form.
So, but before March is
I
up,
have-
we would want to get this all done,
I had one
We have no
question.
choice. No,
Yeah,
yes,
you
it
have
will
to,
be
because the
before
first meeting,
March is
April
up.
1st.
Can be next, by the end of next week, it has to be done.
Okay,
Oh,
okay,
If we're gonna
so
vote on
you asked for it, you'll get it.
So in the next
We
week,
have
Chris.
modifications,
workshop.
no, actually, I have something.
Well, no,
over
because we
there,
have to know that everybody wants the changes, Jen, so we kind of have
We
to
have
hash
to be
it
able
out
to
now.
say that this is good and we can do it. and-
Right, if he has
Right.
questions and he wants
Yeah.
changes, but you guys don't, we have to make sure everybody's.
Just
Oh,
one,
yeah,
just
yeah.
one holdover that I saw so far, on the modifications, 6 modifications,
Yes.
subset A, saying that it would be a site plan amendment. Following initial construction and occupancy, any changes other than use changes shall be
Under
considered
modifications.
Yeah.
as a request for a site plan amendment. Why would it be that
Initial construction.
and not,
It's the section right above C.
Well, because it's other than use.
Yep.
so?
Other than
Other than
use would be site
Could you
plan.
give me an example of what that?
Which, is it this 6 modification?
Yes.
What is it that you don't have what is it that you're concerned about?
I'm wondering, yeah, the bottom line is, does this circumvent
The
the
ZBA.
usual zone, yeah, the use or area variance?
Yes, absolutely. This is overrides, any use variance or anything that's.
Following initial, yeah, I mean, I know that's the whole.
It's saying if
thing
they've
of the
started
code,
No,
but
no, so
construction and they
what's your-
wanna
see,
make
that's-
a change.
Following
Oh, then they have to
construction
go
and
back through the
occupancy.
whole process.
Right, but
Do you
that's.
want it to come back here, or do you want it?
I
I
think
think
we
it
said-
Here we had
has
it
to
for
come
site
back to
plan.
the town board. You can't have the
So that
planning
is a
board
site plan.
grant area variance.
So we have the language correct there.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think they have to go back to the town board, because it's not what we approved.
So we don't want site plan, we want, under 7540C3, we want them to come back to this board. It's not use, it's other things.
Well, it would be a zoning change, because, right, because,
Or
and
the
it
extension
depends-
of the action granted by this, decision made by this board.
Following
So
initial
this board
construction
should
and
rule on-
occupancy, any changes
What are
other
the
than
changes?
use changes shall be considered as a request for site plan.
or the
amendment.
ZBA.
Yeah, that's my question,
It
is
seems
what's
like-
the appropriate?
I mean,
I
it seems
think-
like it should be the ZBA, frankly.
No, because
No?
you're not gonna be asking for a variance under this.
Because they're zoned under this.
But it's a variance, it's a
No.
It
variance.
may not be a variance, it says a change, it doesn't say a variance, it
If
could
we
be a change to
approved
their
a
site
certain-
plan.
If we approved a certain plan, I would think it has to go back to the town board.
Okay.
One, yeah, I was a town
Shall
board.
be considered, okay, following initial construction, any changes other than use changes.
Why would we?
No,
why-
see, use changes
this
would come
should-
here.
That's what I'm saying.
Use changes would come here.
Okay, so that's
So
why it
this
says
is the-
that, that's why it says that, because if it's not use changes, they
Right,
can
you've
go for
already said
site,
the
they go
use
back
can
to the
go.
planning board.
And the planning board,
Right,
right,
if
and the
it's
planning
use
board would have to
changes,
approve
then they
it,
have to go
yes.
back to the town board, that makes sense.
But shouldn't it, but.
Okay.
No, because right now, the
So
it's okay
planning
for the
board
planning
can
board.
modify
They
these
can
areas.
area.
modify the site plan, okay, so let's say they make
This
a
is
change, they
consistent
don't
with
have to
how
go back to
planning
the
board
town
operates
board.
now.
They only have to
Okay.
go back to the planning
Oh.
board, see, only if it's a use change do they come back to the town board.
Right,
If they
because,
change the use,
because you're
then
allowing a
our
change for a
approval
certain use.
Right, right, I
It's
understand.
based on use, it's
I
not based on
understand.
the site.
What I was thinking is like if they wanted to change the density, I can have my.
If they want to do that, I would say,
That's what I'm saying would be.
No, because our the density in this code is based on on the structure, so it doesn't make it, they can't change the density.
That's true. Okay.
So they
That was my question.
Yeah.
Thanks for helping puzzle through it. Make sure that I understood what the process was.
Yeah. Do you think it's clear now? Mary Lou, do you think the language is clear?
Well, there was a question now, so it doesn't mean there won't be a question later.
That's what I'm.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So maybe we should have another thing that says any use changes, they would have to go
Right.
back to the town board.
Mhm.
And then make this a B,
Right.
and then that a C.
Right.
That works. Good catch.
Sometimes a stupid question isn't.
No, it wasn't a
No, it
stupid
wasn't a
question
stupid
at all.
question.
That's,
It's when
yeah,
things
I was
are
saying
hard
to
to
Jean
figure
when we
out.
did this, I said, I
Yeah.
don't know how many times we went over it and how many pieces of paper I had in front of me. I said,
Yeah.
they're
So
gonna
then
find
there-
things that need to be corrected.
There is
because
a
things are
typo in
swimming.
it, you know,
Hey, I think we
We
corrected that.
corrected them.
the extra that, we took that.
Oh, no,
No, I
we
didn't
just
see
selected a
that.
different typo.
Two
John
others.
brought up a typo.
Did two this morning.
Where's our extra that?
There's a, on the first page, purpose, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth one, compact pattern, that is sensitive.
Oh, that's not in the change
Not in
plan, that's in the
it.
first
Oh,
one.
okay. You
Yeah,
did
I
catch
am,
it.
I am going to go back and check with Jill to make sure that you guys got all the changes that we had put in there. because This was changed so many times, and make sure you had the final
What else
final
do I have?
version. Are we-
That's all I
Okay,
had.
now we're ready.
I did
All
ready
right.
for
Are you good?
Solarize was my problem.
Yep.
All right, are you good? All right, we're done.
All right.
All right,
I will make
Parkinson,
those changes and
I
then-
don't think that needs much explaining.
No.
for it.
You
No,
wanna do it now, or you wanna do it next week?
No.
I mean,
we
next-
don't have next.
Yeah, let's do
Next
it
month,
now.
all right.
Let's do it.
What resolution is this, Mandy?
It's not a resolution.
Oh, it's proclamation, one then, right?
That's the city.
All right,
That's
proclamation
100%
2015, 3-1. Parkinson's Awareness Month, whereas Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological movement disorder of the central nervous system, which has a unique impact on each patient, and whereas according to the Parkinson's Action Network, Parkinson's Disease Foundation, the American Parkinson's Disease Association, and the National Institutes for Health, there are over 1 million Americans diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And whereas symptoms include slowness, tremor, difficulty with balance and speaking, rigidity, cognitive and memory problems, and whereas although new medicines and therapies may enhance life for some time for people with Parkinson's, more work is needed for a cure. And whereas increased education and research are needed to help find more effective treatments with fewer side effects and ultimately a cure for Parkinson's disease. And whereas a multidisciplinary approach to Parkinson's disease care includes local wellness support and caregiver groups. And whereas April has been proclaimed as Worldwide Parkinson's Awareness Month, for all to recognize the need for more research and help in dealing with the devastating effects of Parkinson's disease. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Rosendale proclaims the month of April as Parkinson's Awareness Month. And let's just change that date on the motion to March 11th. Anybody want to second that?
I will.
Roll vote, Councilman Hughes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Masters,
Yes.
Councilman Kozlowski,
Yes.
Councilman Lang.
Yes.
Supervisor Walsh.
Yes.
And then, the next one is the amendment to Oric's bond resolution. Do I have to read this whole thing?
No.
Just give
Yes,
us the quick
yes,
intro.
Just of is it, we are
Yeah.
adding
You have to read it for
$400,000
real,
to the
on bond
bond.
resolution.
And
Jean?
We have to read the
You
whole
have to read
thing.
the
I
whole
have
thing
to
on the
for
bond
permissive.
resolution.
Oh,
I'm
geez.
sorry.
We can take turns.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm.
Yeah,
it's
you
all
take
right.
turns, I'll take
No,
turns.
wait, let her-
If Mary Lou wasn't here, we would get away with it.
I know. And I'm billing you to tell you
And
that.
they even turned the camera off, we could've got away.
I want that
She's here
pool,
already.
and we're gonna do it right.
You're still being recorded.
Aye, aye, sir.
It's just audio.
Huh?
We ran out of video. You're still being recorded on.
Oh, well, then I can't do it.
Sorry.
I watched it. All right. Can
can I start it?
Yes.
Be it resolved.
Why am I putting that?
How about be it resolved
Where
on
is it?
page 2?
Where am I starting this?
Your number 6 too, by the way.
Wait a minute.
Wait,
Do
you
I-
have to read the
I'm
Where-
bond
getting legal opinion
resolution.
on where to
Where am I
start.
starting this, Mary Lou?
That's a bond resolution, right?
Yeah,
Page
bond
two.
resolution, a
And a
resolution
regular meeting of
authorizing.
the town
Right,
board.
this part?
Page
This
2.
part?
Yeah,
All right.
oh, it's not that bad.
Right here.
We've had like
Start
17
right there.
bond resolutions, this is not bad.
Wait,
Bond
yeah.
resolution dated
Or
March
would we read
11th,
that whole bit?
2015, a resolution authorizing subject to permissive referendum issuance of an additional $400,000 bonds of the town of Rosendale, Ulster County, New York, to pay part of the cost of reconstruction of the town pool and for said town. Be it resolved by affirmative vote of not less than 2/3 of the vote, total voting strength of the town board of the town of Rosendale, Ulster County, New York, as follows. Section 1, the reconstruction of the town pool in the town of Rosendale, Ulster County, New York, including incidental improvements and expenses, are now hereby authorized the maximum estimated cost of $1,700,000. Section 2, the plan for financing of the aforesaid maximum estimated cost is as follows. A, by the issuance of the $200,000 bonds of said town heretofore authorized to be issued therefore pursuant to a bond resolution dated August 13, 2014. B, by the expenditure of $1,100,000 grants and aid and other available monies authorized therefore. And C, by the issuance of additional $400,000 bonds of said town hereby authorized, subject to permissive referendum, to be issued therefore pursuant to the provisions of the local finance law. Section 3 is hereby determined that the period of probable usefulness of the aforesaid subject, object, or purpose is 15 years pursuant to subdivision 61 of paragraph A of section 11.00 of the local finance law. It is hereby further determined that the maximum maturity of the bonds herein authorized will exceed 5 years. Section 4, the faith and credit of said town of Rosendale, Ulster County, New York, are hereby irrevocably pledged for the payment of the principal of and interest on such bonds as the same respectively become due and payable. An annual appropriation shall be made in each year sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on such bonds becoming due and payable in such year. There shall annually be levied on all the taxable real property of said town a tax sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on such bonds as the same become due and payable. Section 5, subject to the provisions of local finance law, the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell bond in anticipation of the issuance and sale of the bonds herein authorized, including renewals of such notes, is hereby delegated to the supervisor, the chief fiscal officer. So such notes shall be of such terms, forms, and contents, and shall be sold in such manner as may be prescribed by said supervisor, consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 6, all other matters except as provided herein relating to the bonds herein authorized, including the date, denominations, maturities, and interest payment dates, within the limitations prescribed herein and the manner of execution of the same, including consolidation with other issues, and also the ability to issue bonds with substantially level or declining annual debt service shall be determined by the supervisor, the chief fiscal officer of such town. Such bonds shall contain substantially the recital of validity cause provided for in section 52 of the local finance law, and shall otherwise be in such form and contain such recitals in addition to those required by section 51 of the local finance law, as the supervisor shall determine consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 7, the validity of such bonds and bond anticipation notes may be contested only if 1, such obligations are authorized for an object or purpose for which the said town is not authorized to expend money, or 2, the provisions of the law which should be compiled with at the date of publication of this resolution not substantially complied with. And an action suit or proceeding contesting such validity is commenced within 20 days after the date of such publication, or 3, such obligations are authorized in violation of the provisions of the Constitution. Section 8, this resolution shall constitute a statement of official intent for purposes of Treasury Regulation, Section 1.150-2. Other than as specified in this resolution, no monies are or are reasonably expected to be reserved, allocated on a long-term basis, or otherwise set aside with respect to the permanent funding of the object or purpose described herein. Section 9, upon this resolution taking effect, the same shall be published in summary form in the official newspaper said town, designated for such purpose, together with the notice of the town clerk, in substantially the form provided in section 81 of the local finance law. Section 10, the resolution is adopted with the permissive referendum. Mandy?
I'll second.
Councilman Hughes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Metzger,
Yes.
Councilman Squatski,
Yes.
Councilman Lang,
Yes.
Supervisor Wolf.
Yes. This resolution was thereupon declared duly adopted. Do I have to read this part, certification form? That's just,
That's
she
mine.
can
No,
just
that's
do that.
hers.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's hers.
That's all you, honey.
Which one do I post? Which
Post.
section?
The notice of adoption?
You have to, don't you have to post what
Must
you
have
read?
said it should
What was
be,
read?
I think it's
So
underneath
you know what
that,
notice of
maybe.
adoption.
Do I need to read that too, Mary Lou?
No,
That's the same.
no, you don't have to do that, but you should check with bond counsel on that.
On
because
what?
they're- On what she posts.
No,
Yeah,
I think,
no,
I'm
he
pretty
knows.
sure it's this part here, just from
Yeah.
doing
Because
them all.
I was gonna say, because it's
Yeah,
an
but you can
abstract.
call
of it.
Tom tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask how much has been raised on grants and fundraising at this point?
About 1.15.
And what are we looking at to reach?
We're going to bring it up another 600 to bring it up to 1.7. The bid was 1.57, and we need a buffer for engineering and any incidentals that we haven't looked at.
Okay.
800,000 was grant money.
Do we lose that grant money if it's not done in a specific time period?
We have some time still, but we have to use it or we lose it, obviously. What is it, 3 years maybe?
I don't remember.
I don't
what the amount
remember
was.
offhand,
I mean,
so
you
I
have
wanna be quoted.
plenty of time to get
We
this
have
done,
plenty of
it's not
time,
like.
yeah.
We had that last, Office of Parks grant of 50,000 for like 10 years.
Well, that's
Yeah,
because,
the
that's because Jean did some wizardry and got them to
Yeah.
allow us to
The
still use it
800
on
is
something else.
consistent of 3 grants that we received, 500,000 from Parks and Rec, 50,000 from Parks and Rec, and 250 from a grant that Senator Bonasek gave us. That was, I want to say, an economic development grant.
And the rest was for fundraising.
What's that?
And the remaining amount was for fundraising.
Except for 193, I think, was the sale of the town hall.
So we're gonna get lights in the pool?
No.
We will get water
You're
though.
gonna skim the bugs on that?
Bring your own lights.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
We had to have thought of that ahead of time. Our plans were already done, and we just came up with that
I
idea.
remember
so-
talking about it at one point though, and it was
Yeah.
bugs.
You know, because it gives you
Oh,
nighttime
yeah.
revenue.
Yeah,
That's what we had
night
discussed.
swimming would be awesome.
Maintenance, introduce a.
There
I'm
will
sure
be-
that would
there
put
will-
the
there has to be
insurance
new
policy.
lighting on the outside, because our pool right now is illegal, because the lights are like, over the pool where they're not supposed to be, so that's
And they
all
can't
that we
be
would
on.
need.
I'm sure our insurance policy would
You
have
need
a,
lights in the pool.
In the pool, yeah. You should have them anyway, that.
So, we're gonna make this motion to amend the cell tower next month.
We're
Mary
gonna-
and I talked about that.
We have executive session, I guess.
And I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss collective bargaining, collective negotiations under Article 14 of Civil Service Law, and to discuss the employment of a particular person.
You don't.
I don't think I need that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Lou.
Thanks,
Now that we're
Mary
done
Lou.
talking about it.